These are bills that would enable anyone 18 and up to carry a concealed weapon in public with no training or permit. These bills are dangerous, and we have over 150 gun safety advocates and gun violence survivors assembling now to meet with legislators all day today to ensure that House Bill 5 does not make it to a floor vote. They will also be doing their own press conference at 11 a.m. outside on the North Carolina Capitol grounds that I encourage everyone to attend to hear directly from those impacted by gun violence in our state. In solidarity with their efforts and to protect all North Carolinians, we now proudly approach gun safety offensively based on scientific data from other states that have implemented common sense legislation as to what it actually takes to reduce gun violence across our state. I'm joined today by many of my colleagues who worked tirelessly together to introduce a dozen strategic and proactive gun violence prevention bills that we are honored to discuss with you here today. In total, we filed 12 bills that were co-sponsored by 44 North Carolina House representatives, and we thank them for their support. We begin by discussing legislation to help prevent children and teens from accidentally accessing firearms and horrifically hurting themselves or others. To do so, I welcome my colleague, Representative Phil Rubin.
Thank you, Representative Clark. My name is Phil Rubin. I am the representative from House District 40, which is in North Raleigh, and I'm a former federal prosecutor and a former Special Deputy Attorney General for North Carolina. And in that role, I have seen the harmful effects of gun crime. I have seen the harmful effects of gun violence, including accidental gun violence. And today, I'm going to spend my time talking about the most preventable form of gun violence, which is when kids get access to guns and tragedies happen. So one thing I'm going to take a step back and talk about is that the legislature has and has had for decades a North Carolina Child Fatality Task Force, which puts out a report every year. And in the most recent report, they talk about how firearm injury is the leading cause of death in North Carolina for teens and youth. And that rate has doubled in recent years, doubled. They also cited a Journal of American Medical Association pediatric study showing that 32% of suicide and unintentional youth firearm deaths could be prevented by safe storage of firearms. These are real lives. These are children's lives that we're talking about. And so what we do as a legislature matters. And so I'm going to talk about two bills, House Bill 643 and House Bill 448. 643 clarifies our safe storage law requirement, and House Bill 448 makes it less expensive for parents to safely store their firearms so that kids don't get access to them. House Bill 643 comes out of an avoidable tragedy. And it's documented in a North Carolina Court of Appeals case called State v. Cable. You had two 16-year-old boys, Kevin and Wyatt, and Kevin was spending the night at Wyatt's house. A parent in the home had in her bedroom an unloaded revolver sitting on top of a gun safe right next to a box of ammunition for that revolver. Of course, kids are curious, and during the night, Wyatt took his friend into the bedroom, showed him the gun, and they left. But later in the night, Kevin came back. He got the gun. He also got one round of ammunition, brought it back to Wyatt and said, "Hey, let's play Russian roulette." He loaded the gun, he pointed it at his head, and he died. Now, North Carolina already has a statute that makes it a crime to fail to safely store a firearm in the residence with a youth. However, that statute requires the gun be in a condition that the firearm can be discharged. And the court held that an unloaded firearm stored right next to ammunition for it is not in a condition that it can be discharged. And so the law would not apply in that case. And so the bill that we filed, House Bill 643, it simply clarifies that that is not true. It removes that requirement, in fact, from the statute entirely because the statute already requires a lot of things for a parent to be held liable. They have to have youth living in the home. They have to know or should have known that they could get access to the firearm. They have to get access to the firearm without authorization. Then they have to do something terrible with it, commit a crime, harm or kill someone, threaten someone, bring it to school. Only then is it a crime. And so this statute continues to protect gun owners, but what it does that's really important and the statute is failing to do is that it protects kids. Guns are instruments of death, and they're intended to be instruments of death. That is what they are designed to do. So those who own them have a moral and a legal obligation to keep them away from kids. House Bill 643 makes that obligation more clear in our law while still ensuring that the penalties only apply when a firearm is left accessible to minors and used in a tragedy. And I'll briefly touch on House Bill 448, which on the other side tries to make it easier for parents to store firearms more safely. And it does that simply by excluding from sales tax trigger locks and gun safes to make them more affordable for people who buy them. So our law should require you to have this and keep kids safe, and our law should make it easier for you to do that. I think these are both, as Representative Clark talked about, common sense bills that should be something that unites everyone across the political spectrum to keep kids safe. Now I'd like to invite my colleague, Representative Marcia Mori, who is a retired chief district court judge, has been a champion for common sense gun legislation for decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am Marcia Mori from Durham. This is my 7th press conference on gun safety. The first one happened in 2018, right after the Parkland shooting. Then there was the Pulse nightclub, and then there was Uvalde, and here we are again. But every time this legislature has looked away. You want to buy a gun, simply be 21, do a background check. You want to own a gun, just safely store it. If someone is dangerous in possession of a gun, let a judge order it be removed. None of this is radical. This is just simply common sense, and nothing comes near to interfere with the Second Amendment. There have been thousands of mass shootings. Over 200,000 have died from gun violence in our country since I participated in the first press conference. A country where now the leading cause of death, as Representative Rubin said, for children is because of guns. More gun deaths to children than they die from cancer or automobile deaths combined. We have to do something about it. I'm going to show you, I have 3 bills to talk about. One is the Extreme Risk Protective Order, House Bill 166, which I have now introduced. As you will see, my chart when I first came in 2018, this is the 5th time. When I first introduced it, 9 states had extreme risk protective orders. We now have 21 states have passed it. Republican states, Democrat states. It's not a partisan issue. North Carolina, it's time to act. This allows, if a gun is in the hands of someone who is known to be at risk of suicide or harm to themselves or others, if someone goes to a judge who is a law enforcement, a family member, a mental health professional, shows evidence to the judge can order that person be, any gun be removed from that person's possession, and a hearing would be held to see if that would be an order for 1 year or 2 years. It's common sense. The other bills I have are safe storage, similar to Representative Rubin, but this is just in cars. If you have a gun, you're going to transport it in a car or a truck, lock up your car or truck, and put the gun in a safe container. The vast majority of stolen guns come out of unlocked cars, unlocked trucks, and are used in crimes. Simple to solve. Lock it up. And my third bill is a concern that our law enforcement has. Any gun that has been relinquished voluntarily or used in a crime that has no further value, allow law enforcement to destroy these guns. Do not require them to sell it back to a firearms dealer. We have over 40,000 guns in storage across the state in warehouses. Simply allow these guns to be destroyed. Nothing is radical here. Everything is common sense. We hope, finally, the legislature will act and not wait until we have another horrific mass shooting, which we know will come. Let's act before it happens. And now I'm proud to introduce to you my colleague, Representative Julia Greenfield.
Thank you, Marcia. I'm Representative Julia Greenfield, and I represent House District 100 in Mecklenburg County. And I want to say that we're all gathered here today because we are tired. We are tired of hearing the same headlines, tired of seeing families torn apart, tired of watching our Republican colleagues do nothing except loosen gun restrictions while our children pay the price. How many more lives need to be lost? How many more classrooms turned into crime scenes? How many more families shattered? Assault weapons have one purpose: to kill as many people as possible, as fast as possible. They are weapons of war, not self-defense. No civilian needs that kind of firepower. This isn't just a political issue, it's a moral one. We have the power and the responsibility to protect innocent lives. Banning assault weapons is not about taking away all guns. It's about drawing a line. It's about saying that weapons of war do not belong on our streets. It's about valuing lives over firepower. The statistics are heartbreaking and undeniable. In countries that have banned assault weapons, mass shootings have dropped significantly. In contrast, here in the U.S., where access remains shockingly easy, we've had more mass shootings than days in a year. Children are practicing lockdown drills instead of focusing on their studies. Families are grieving losses that should never have happened. So with this said, my colleagues and I have introduced an assault weapon ban bill, House Bill 784. It's simple. It says ban assault weapons and the equipment that can turn other guns into an assault-type weapon. We know that it won't see the light of day, but we are sending a message. Enough is enough. We demand action. This is not a left or right issue. This is a life or death issue. And we will not back down. We will not stay quiet, and we will not stop until all assault weapons are off our streets and out of our communities for good. We cannot wait for the next tragedy. We must act now with compassion, with courage, and with common sense. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce the next speaker, Julie Von Hafen.
Thank you, Representative. I'm Representative Julie Von Hafen. As you all know, last session we repealed the pistol permitting process here in North Carolina, and that action has made North Carolina less safe. Proponents of repealing the pistol permit insisted that there were no loopholes in background checks on gun purchases because, quote, all sales at gun dealers require a background check. This, of course, willfully ignores the prevalence of private sales and transfers. Federal law only requires background checks on sales and transfers at licensed gun dealers, but not private sales or transfers, leaving it to the states to cover that gap. And we know that 13% of all sales, 2 million guns annually, occur between unlicensed sellers under the personal transfer loophole. Without the pistol permit requirement here in North Carolina, we no longer require sellers to conduct any sort of background check. Loopholes are not the only reason for concern. Time and time again, researchers have found that impulsive firearm purchases are associated with increased firearm suicides. In 2013, an MIT study found that states with delay laws, or laws that impose some kind of time delay between the decision to purchase a gun and the receipt of the gun, also experience fewer impulsive assaults and lower homicide rates. Removing these basic steps, like the pistol permitting process, dramatically increases the number of firearms entering our communities. AmmoLand, which is actually a staunchly anti-regulation organization, reported that, according to data in North Carolina in April of 2023, the first full month after we repealed the pistol permit process, 46,000 guns were purchased in North Carolina in 1 month. NCIS only recorded 22,109 sales for the entire year of 2022. That's why I filed House Bill 366, which would reinstate the pistol permit process that the North Carolina General Assembly eliminated last session. And we would also expand the permitting process to long guns and rifles, a bill that I filed for the last, I think, three sessions we've been here in the General Assembly. We know that the pistol permitting process works to address that personal transfer loophole and combat impulsive purchases. And restoring and extending the permitting requirement is a concrete step we can take to address gun violence that would not deprive a single eligible citizen of their Second Amendment rights. North Carolina was a national leader on this issue for over a century by requiring this pistol permit process and a background check for all handgun sales. Our state benefited from that leadership, ensuring that a vast majority of firearm owners were responsible, law-abiding citizens who took their responsibility seriously. And instead of closing that last loophole by requiring permits and background checks on long guns, we went backwards by repealing this process. But it's not too late. We could reinstate that process and extend it. Every single North Carolinian with the right to own these firearms today would still have that right, and we'd all be much safer here in North Carolina. Now I want to turn it over to, Representative Jordan Lopez. Sorry.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody, and good morning. Thank you to my colleagues for their incredible work on these, as we've said time and time again, common sense bills. And truly a comprehensive set of bills that touch on a variety of topics that are all important to reducing gun violence in our communities across our state. To follow along with the comprehensive nature of the bills that we've introduced, I, along with my colleagues, have introduced House Bill 545, an act to regulate ghost guns. It's a topic that doesn't get talked about much, but they are very much so a prevalent issue in our community. For context, for just how persistent these ghost guns are across North Carolina, in 2021, over 1,000 ghost guns were found in this state, and a majority of those were found in the city of Charlotte, where I represent and where I call home. It's long overdue that we implement common sense regulations that treat these firearms the same way we do traditional firearms, and thankfully federal regulation has been in place and was litigated and recently upheld in the United States Supreme Court that yes, if you sell guns in separate pieces, whether that be an upper receiver or a frame, that they do have to be serialized, they do have to be registered, so that way they can be tracked, and if they are used in a crime, folks can be, law enforcement can do their jobs and hold those folks accountable. From part kits to 3D printed weapons, if you can create or build a firearm here in North Carolina, it should be treated as the same way as the firearm that I purchased legally from a gun shop in Charlotte or right here in North Carolina. In fact, gun shop owners, agree that treating these part kits like we do firearms are a good step in the right direction and will in fact increase safety with how we treat these weapons. Federal regulations, as I mentioned before, closely mirror what House Bill 545 is trying to do here in North Carolina, but with the way the federal government has been shifting on a fairly regular basis, we wanted to make sure that we could introduce a bill that would enshrine that same regulation right here in North Carolina state law. And I'm happy that my colleagues have decided to join me on this work and for their work in introducing several more bills that are truly common sense, as I said before, comprehensive, and I think get us that much closer to a safer state for our families, for our students, for our kids, for everybody. So thank you all for being here. And now I'll pass this along over to Representative Clark to come wrap us up.
Great, thank you, everyone. So I am honored to discuss two other bills that we introduced. I'm going to start with House Bill 350. This is to report lost and stolen firearms within 24 hours. Very common sense if you're a responsible gun owner. And my father-in-law retired from Guilford County Sheriff's Office, and he personally had a gun stolen out of his car and went through the proper reporting process and helped to educate me about the need for responsible gun owners to report this more quickly and thoroughly so that law enforcement can better solve these thefts before these guns are likely used in crimes. A study in the journal Injury Epidemiology found that guns reported lost were 3 times more likely to be used in crimes. Stolen guns had nearly 9 times the likelihood. So thus, we introduced this bill for gun owners to report it within 24 hours. We believe that this is a basic component of being a responsible gun owner, to proactively work with law enforcement if your personal gun has fallen into the wrong hands in order to protect our community. Again, common sense, the right thing to do. Now, another bill we introduced was House Bill 989, Build Safer Communities in Schools Act. And as a mom of 2 daughters in elementary school, I personally know that most parents are most concerned about their children's safety while they are at school. Even though we know that the data shows school shootings are less likely than the everyday gun homicides and suicides killing North Carolinians daily due to the quick access of firearms, we adamantly believe that more must be done to support and secure our schools. We fight in memory of all those lost at the horrific school shootings that are increasingly, devastatingly happening across our nation. So House Bill 989 supports community partners and school health support personnel to improve safety in public schools by providing grants for services helping students in crisis, school safety training, and safety equipment across our schools. To discuss school safety, I invite my colleague and former school teacher, Representative Beth Helfrich, to the podium.
Thank you so much, Representative Clark, and thank you to my colleagues for being here today and for all of their hard work on this important legislation. Good morning, everyone. I am Beth Helfrich, and I serve the good people of North Mecklenburg County in the House of Representatives. And yes, I spent the bulk of my life in schools. I'm the child of teachers who went on to become a teacher myself and then a school leader, and I am now the proud parent of 5, 4 of whom are enrolled in North Carolina public schools, 1 of whom is still in the pipeline, as we say. And I am giving away my age, but this week will mark the 26th anniversary, 26 years since the shooting at Columbine High School this Sunday, April 20th. It happened my senior year of high school. And since then, communities and schools across America have experienced over 420 school shootings. Some would count that number even higher. The incidents of a gun being found on campus are innumerable. Each one has left our communities, our schools, and our kids grieving and traumatized. The most recent was just yesterday at Wilmer Hutchins High School in Dallas. It was the 2nd shooting at this school in the last year. School shootings make up a small percentage of the gun violence epidemic in America. Less than 1% of shootings happen at a school campus. But the impact extends beyond the casualties. Gun violence shapes the people of this country in seen and unseen ways, and it absolutely shapes the way our schools feel and operate and are, and the kids and families and faculty and staff who work inside of them every single day. Gun violence has a profoundly dangerous and harmful impact on our school communities. Keeping our schools safe requires a comprehensive approach and strategy. I was so encouraged by the federal legislation passed through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This was a great step forward, and it included school safety grants and funding to address the holistic needs of school communities in preventing tragedies from happening in the first place, and also the unfortunately very practical needs of our school buildings themselves. We're talking about reinforcement and single entry buildings and scanners. HB 989 codifies the school safety grant program, as Representative Clark said. And as we are unsure about what, if any, federal legislation will happen or protection for our schools, it's really important that our state step up and codify the support so that our school districts have the means and resources that they need to be able to keep our students safe, so that North Carolina does not have a school that becomes eponymous with gun violence. I've learned from my time, both in schools as a teacher and also as a former Moms Demand Action volunteer, that progress is not linear, that it requires stepping up and showing up again and again and again, and stepping in and carrying the torch of trying to advocate for common sense proactive measures. And I'm proud to introduce someone who understands and embodies the notion of stepping up and carrying the torch, who's here with us today. Angela Farrell-Zabala has been at the helm of Moms Demand Action since 2023, when she was named its inaugural executive director. A mom of 4, including a set of twins, bested me there, Angela has committed her life and career to purposeful community organizing. She is a movement builder, an on-the-ground partner, and a champion of grassroots organizing, the cornerstone of which is showing up. We are so grateful that she and hundreds of advocates outside are showing up for North Carolina today as we collectively demand more from our state legislature. And it is my honor to turn the mic over to Angela Farrell-Zabala. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Angela Farrell-Zabala, and I am proud to serve as the Executive Director of Moms Demand Action. And together with Students Demand Action in Every Town for Gun Safety, we serve as the largest grassroots organization in this country fighting to end gun violence. You'll see us in our red shirts around the Capitol today, and I want to start by saying how grateful that I am to have these incredible legislative champions here. On behalf of all the survivors, students, and advocates in our movement, thank you. Thank you for legislating on behalf of the people you represent, on behalf of common sense, and on behalf of common safety. Instead of cowering to the gun lobby and putting lives at risk, you just heard about some of the many legislative solutions we need to solve this crisis, which is the #1 killer of kids in this country. I also want to take a second to talk about why we're here. On an average year, over 1,700 people in North Carolina will die because of gun violence. Each of those lives was an entire world stolen. And it means lifelong grief for those loved ones. For some of us, that kind of pain is something we can't even imagine. But for others, including many here today, it's their daily reality. We can't keep living like this, y'all. These lawmakers are showing up for us, and we need their colleagues in the State House to follow their lead, because we can't afford to take no for an answer. And I want to make something clear. Our fight isn't against the Second Amendment. In fact, our movement includes so many gun owners, many of them survivors, who are advocating right alongside us. This is about common sense. Our kids are being shot and killed. No matter where you stand politically, none of us can be okay with that. That's our common ground, so let's start there. If we all face that reality, we can actually focus on making our communities safer instead of trying to get rid of solutions we know are saving lives. That's what our movement is here to make clear today. And that starts with rejecting this reckless push to allow permitless carry in North Carolina. Do you know what happens when you get rid of permitting systems? When states roll back simple things like background checks and basic training? Simple. Gun violence goes up. Preventable tragedies strike and communities grieve. Imagine you're at a grocery store or at a kid's soccer game or at your church, and those around you could be carrying guns with no training on how to use them responsibly and no checks to ensure that they can even have guns in the first place. We're talking about people as young as 18 without any vetting concealing a deadly weapon. Any person with common sense can see this isn't gonna make North Carolina safer, which is probably why the overwhelming majority of voters here want to keep North Carolina's permitting system. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, gun owner or not. Nobody wants this invitation for tragedy in their community. So instead of pouring their time and energy into this reckless effort, we're asking lawmakers to prioritize the life-saving bills that are being put forth today. Common sense, foundational gun safety laws that strengthen secure storage, ban untraceable ghost guns, and improve safety in schools, none of which infringe on the right to bear arms, despite what extremists want you to believe. Until we can all learn, play, shop, pray, and simply exist without the constant threat of gun violence, we aren't letting up. Thank you all for your leadership on this crisis. Our movement is here to help get these laws across the finish line, and together I know that we're going to create a safer North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I'm deeply honored that you're here today to support our efforts, and we are in this all together. Again, we are mothers, fathers, friends, community members, and I myself am a gun violence survivor. I've lost 3 loved ones to gun violence, 1 suicide and 2 homicide. This is personal. We are not going to stop talking about this. It affects us all. I appreciate everyone who came today and who tuned in online. We take gun violence prevention extremely seriously and are ready to take proactive steps to better protect our communities. We respect the Second Amendment. This is not an all or nothing. We can and should meet in the middle in order to reduce gun violence deaths across our state. We honor their memory and stand united with the countless survivors and loved ones who grapple with the harrowing loss of those taken too early. We are happy to take any questions at this time. Okay. Thank you all so much. We appreciate it. Have a great day.